What is a twice-turn bowl? Why would we turn a bowl more than once? Today, we're going to answer those questions and give you 3 tips to make sure you achieve success when twice-turning bowls.
A couple months ago, we cut up some logs and rough-turned a batch of bowls. We go through those steps to help dry our bowl blanks to help reduce or eliminate cracking. Now that our bowls are dry, it's time to do our second or finish turning. Let's get this bowl mounted to the lathe. One challenge with remounting our bowl now that it's dry is that it is now out of round. You can see the black marker, hopefully, where when we rough turned it, that was obviously a circle. And this will kind of give you an idea. We're about 8 1/8 inches across this direction and a little over 8 1/2 inches across this direction. And not only that, we've also got kind of a bulge in the rim of the bowl. So if we try to set it down here, you can see how it wobbles around. One of the challenges that we always face is remounting the bowl to the lathe. There's a couple different ways that you can do it. We could use coal jaws or a Longworth chuck and just put it up here on the plate, but with this rim out of balance, or with this bulge here on the rim, that's going to make it wobble. And in this case, there's quite a bit of deflection there, or difference between the high spot and the low spot, which makes that challenging. Another way to kind of mount using a plate would be to have a large, kind of like a large disc, similar to the coal jaws, but you would basically create a channel, an open channel or a void that the high spot on the rim could go into, and then you could bring your tailstock up and press it up against that disc. That would be another way to do it, using kind of coal jaws, Longworth chuck, or a disc. Another option, if you have jaws that are big enough, is we could mount the bowl like this, cut a recess that would be round here in this extra material, and then use our jaws to kind of expand out into that recess. I don't have jaws that would really fit this very well, so that's out of the question today. But I'm going to use I'm just going to use my chuck basically as a jam chuck. I'm going to use this little pad in the bottom of the bowl. You could also turn a block that kind of conforms to the inside of the bowl. That would be another way to do it, but this will actually work relatively well. So I used a center finder to get a rough approximation of center, and that'll just kind of help me with the tailstock, at least give me a starting point. I'm just going to put a pad here in the bottom of the bowl, and then I'm just going to put it right up against the chuck, bring up the tailstock, and that's where that center line just kind of helps us. Tip number 1 is to take our time mounting the bowl here at this step, making sure we've got the bowl running as true as we can. And it's a little rough. It's a little hard to do because everything's out of round. But the closer we are here at this stage, the less material we're going to end up removing on our bowl. So I'm in pretty good shape here. Well, I see a little bit of a wobble, so I don't like that. Ooh, that's worse. When you're happy with it, all we've got to do is tighten the tailstock. Okay, when we kick this on, we're not wobbling too bad, so I think we're in pretty good shape. So the first thing I'm going to do is use my small 1/4 inch bowl gouge, and all I want to do is get the tenon round. That's all I'm looking for here at this point. I'm going to use my Skew chisel like a scraper. This is how I normally form my tenons. Once I've got a rough shape, then I just kind of use this to help get my dovetail shape. Before we turn the bowl around, I am going to kind of start working here on the bottom of the bowl and just get the bottom round a little bit. And then when we flip it around, we'll come back around and get it all blended together. So I'm just using kind of a scraping motion here with my bowl gouge. I'm not going all the way down to the bottom of the tenon because I I want to make sure that's nice and flat so that the chuck registers, has a good registration point. So I just want to get this part round. Once I'm making a cut all the way around, once it's not skipping on me, I know we're pretty well round. Right down there we're in pretty good shape. Tip number 2 is to very carefully establish the outside diameter of the bowl and also flatten this rim. Oftentimes I'll come in with a bevel supported cut across this direction on most bowls to kind of flatten the face like this. But in this case, I'm gonna do it in this direction toward the headstock so I don't blow out this inside edge when we come across here. So let's get our diameter and this rim flat. So I've got this little template here for that outside diameter, and I'm just going to mark this edge out here, connect this line, see where that puts us. We'll work in here a little bit and then we'll recheck that diameter, but we'll start getting that outside where we want it. Here we are, just using kind of a bevel supported cut. I'm coming right into that line. I'm just going to check that diameter. Yeah, that's really close to where we want it. I'm just going to work the outside. Try to get our shape established here. Connected down to the bottom. I'm shooting for about 2 1/4 inches from the foot, or sitting off the table. So I know I've got a little bit of extra out here on the rim, which is good. We're going to turn away our extra material here on the rim, make sure the rim's nice and flat, and then we'll kind of finish feathering in our curve from this point down to the foot. This is giving us much more efficient cuts, so we'll use this method here. So we're really close to our line. Before we start hollowing the bowl, we're just going to come back with our negative rake scraper here on the outside, kind of smooth this off, and just kind of start the finishing process on the outside of the bowl. But here I'm not really looking to change the shape at all. Just want to get these nice feathery shavings. That's all I'm looking for. Just kind of want to refine that outside edge, get rid of any tear out tool marks. With the outside of the bowl in pretty good shape, now it's just time to finish hollowing here on the inside of the bowl. The first thing I want to do is just kind of get the inside round. We're still oblong a little bit. So I'm just going to work in here carefully. Just try to get the inside. Just want a quick reference line here for my inside diameter. We'll shoot for a wall thickness around 1/4 inch. This bowl is designed to be used, so I don't want to go super thin. I've got my bowl scraper out here, and so we'll use it to kind of work down the rest of the material out of the bottom of the bowl. So we want to be patient here, working down to the bottom of our bowl to make sure we don't go too deep. Most of the time, I like to use depth holes, but on a turning like this, it doesn't work really well. It's hard to measure that depth consistently. So just periodically checking, trying to get a fairly consistent wall thickness all the way down from the rim all the way down to the bottom. So I need to keep going here on the bottom a little bit, but I'm pretty good up here on the sides. As we get closer, we'll stop a little more often. So all I'm doing here really is I'm going to start in the very bottom, and instead of working all the way out, I'm just going to work a little bit and stop, and then we're going to come back and smooth that out here in just a second. But that'll help me get the depth that I'm looking for without going through this sidewall back over here. If I make a full sweeping pass every time, I'm likely to take out too much material right here at that transition. Tip number 3 is to use a negative rake scraper on the inside of the bowl, just like we did on the outside, to get rid of any tool marks and tear out. So we often will get tear out in the bottom of a bowl. I've got some tear out over here. So we're going to use our negative rake scraper before we start sanding, just to try to help smooth some of this out. We've got most of our turning done. Now it's time for sanding. I like to use a power sander. I use this air-powered die grinder. It's quick, efficient. I've got a little quick connect here that I can quickly go through the grits. On this project, we'll go from 120 up to 320. I'm going to run the lathe in reverse, kick on the dust collector, but I am going to put on my respirator since we've got spalting here on this piece, and try to avoid breathing this stuff. Now that we're done sanding, the last thing we want to do with this bowl is just remove the tenon and finalize the foot on our bowl. I've already done some measurements, and this tenon's pretty close to the overall size, the overall diameter of the foot that I'm looking for. So really all I want to do on this one is just kind of turn this down. I want to leave a little, maybe not quite 1/8 of an inch, but pretty close. And then we'll just kind of smooth off the bottom of the bowl, make sure we've got nice smooth transitions down here where our tenon is. The last thing I like to do on the foot of my bowl is to add a little bit of texture with this texturing tool. It just adds a little bit of extra interest to the bottom of the bowl. If you missed how we rough turn these bowls and all the tips flying, you can find that video right here. And I'll see you there.